Okay, so my friend, are we ready for the movie of the week?
I do declare.
I do declare that sort of fits the theme. So here we go. Alrighty, so I assigned you some homework
You
uh,
did.
since last week, in the last few days, and I had you watch what is potentially one of my favorite movies. Sometimes I feel like it's my favorite movie, but I don't know. I like so many genres that it's hard to pick one. Like I could maybe
Right.
pick one from each genre or something. This one is like a genre all its own in some ways, but
Yeah.
well, what are we talking about this week?
Oh, brother, where art thou?
Alrighty, and make sure you mention in the chat if you've seen Oh Brother Where Art Thou. Like I said, it's one of my favorite movies. So how about since it's fresh in your mind, I've like been
Yeah.
listening to the soundtrack in the car and stuff. You'll probably want to do that now that you've watched it.
Yeah.
You can find it on Spotify pretty easily. But so how about since it's fresh in your mind, you give us a bit of a plot synopsis, and we
hmm
can. I mean, you don't have to
Yeah.
make it overly complicated, but what
I'll
what what
try.
is it'll that'll sort of reveal how you experienced it, how it struck
Yeah.
you, I suppose.
Well, just to start off, it is the first time I've ever seen the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You might discover as we go on with these live streams. While I do consider myself usually aware of most movies and all that good stuff, always seems to be these movies that like hit culture in a way that somehow I managed to miss it.
Mm.
And Oh Brother, Where Art Thou was one of them. So
Yeah, I think it
glad
was
I got
like
to
what
watch it though.
what came out in like 2000, I think.
Yeah, and I missed this one. I did not see it, and today was the first time I saw it. So, um, synopsis wise, it starts off with three guys who are incarcerated, part of a chain gang. Ulysses and Delmar, I think, is one of them, and forget the third.
Yeah,
Not Ulysses. Yeah, Ulysses.
Ulysses Everett McGill. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And they escape. They flee. They get away. They hitch a ride on a little push cart train cart thing. I don't know what those things are actually called. And
Yeah,
some
this is
blind
like I
guy.
believe Depression era South, basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This blind guy gives him a ride and kind of predicts some things that are about to go down, and the story unfolds with them trying to get away from the lawmen. A lot of hijinks ensue, and they run into all sorts of trouble. And it's based on Homer's Odyssey.
Yeah, loosely, it's like you follow if you know. I don't think either of us have ever directly read all the way through Homer's Odyssey,
Right,
but
right.
we know sort of the story beats, some of the famous plot points, and if you are even loosely familiar with it, you'll notice some sort of plot parallels throughout this movie and Homer's Odyssey. Uh, Now, one of the reasons I recommend it is because like it's basically a comedy,
Mm-hmm.
um, but we talk about movies that have a lot of like Christian themes, basically, more or less, or at least could like or maybe themes that would compare contrast with Christianity that we could talk about. This one's like overtly spiritual in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
That it's weird, even though it's a comedy. Like I'm actually more moved by the movie every time I see it. In a lot of ways,
Well,
it's
in
interesting.
some ways, it's like the most classic version of comedy because, in Greek literature, you had the tragedy and the comedy just was essentially the outcome was a good ending, a
Happy
happy ending.
story.
Yeah. So in that sense, but yes, there are funny beats throughout the movie that I
Hmm.
thought were very clever.
Yeah.
Um, I thought overall my takeaway from it, because you text me and asked me that, did you like it? Any thoughts? And I liked it. I thought it was a good movie. There were definitely some moments I cracked up. Um, and definitely, yeah, a lot of great heart to the movie as well. The Coen brothers, who wrote and directed it,
Yeah.
did a great job with this film.
Which is interesting. If you ever watch any of their other movies,
I think I've seen a couple of their other ones.
they've done some extremely depressing movies, like
Right.
absolutely terrible outcomes at the end of the movie. A lot of them have sort of a lighthearted like humor to them at a lot of moments, but then they end just like grotesquely or
Mm.
horrifically. Like if you ever saw like No Country for Old Men. It's just sad.
Yeah.
You ever see that movie?
I haven't seen that one, but I am familiar with the plot of it.
Yeah, it's really something. What else was it? They did. Yeah, I can't remember all their movies, but this one is just like it's just a happy.
Yeah.
It's just a happy movie, and
Yeah.
it has like a strangely like redemptive theme and quality to it. And it's not like an allegory of Christianity. It's just like there's
Sure.
Christianity in it.
And in a surprising way too,
Yeah.
because typically the the film world, Chanel and I were commenting, again, my wife, were commenting on this the other day. Um, we've been getting into this TV show Superstore. It's another one of the kind of offshoots of The Office in a way. One of the guys that put together Superstore worked on The Office, that kind of thing. And they have a character on there who's supposed to, he's supposed to be a Christian, but it's like they took the caricature of almost every single denomination out there and spliced it all together and made this character. So he's like the worst aspects of everything. And
Yeah.
it's like it's like somebody went to Google and put in like what is a Christian and picked the highlights of the worst and said, well, that's obviously what a Christian is. It's like AI wrote a story about what a Christian is.
Or
But
AI according to like offended culture by
yeah.
Christianity. Yeah.
So, but what we were commenting on, it's like Hollywood always does that. Hollywood always kind of takes the characters and puts that up there and goes, "We did our research." I thought that there was some elements of this that they not that they nailed it type of thing. You know, obviously there's some aspects of it that I was just like, "Oh, groan." But they did a better job, maybe a more heartfelt job than most of Hollywood does.
Yeah. What was interesting, like I don't know, there's a negative and a positive read I could give to it, and that like
Yeah.
with this movie, there's like they you can see almost a contrast of like there's the human expression of spirituality throughout the movie, but
Hmm.
then there's God in the background
Yeah.
doing what he wants, and that's like uh mostly biblical, I would say.
Yeah.
But then there's like these idiot humans, some of which are expressing like corrupt aspects of Christianity, some more
Yeah.
pure aspects. Some of them are very, very pure expressions of Christianity.
Yeah.
Um, some not so much. There's like the corrupt Bible salesman who is the
Yeah.
Cyclops, basically, who wants to make money off the word of God, and it's like right there in your face. And then he's part of the KKK.
Yeah. Which
And
for its day is not all that too far off from
right,
some aspects of the South.
right,
Say it
and
that way.
so like the more negative read I could have of it is that when there is like a more pure expression of Christianity. This isn't 100% true throughout the movie, but some of the time when you see that, it's more of a vague spirituality. You have
Hmm.
like the prophet at the beginning
Yeah.
who prophesies them finding a treasure. Um, and like, I imagine if like a person who wants to be less structured in their spirituality might look at that and be like, ah, well, he exists outside of the church, you see.
Mhm.
And so like look, there's all this old school Christianity going on in this movie, and it's a mixed bag. Some might see it as negative, but then at the end of the movie there's still the spirituality, but it's not so attached to American Christianity, right?
Sure.
And so
Yeah.
there could be that sort of anti-American Christianity theme in it, maybe. But that's not always the case. It's not so purely ideological like that. I can see some like
Yeah.
just really good like the whole baptism in the
Hmm.
beginning. You see, so we didn't even go through the whole plot. I mean, I'm assuming people watching this have seen the movie, but a lot of them probably haven't. But basically, these three guys, they escape from the prison, and they're going after a treasure that the main guy says he buried. And then the prophet says they're going to find a treasure, but it's not going to be the treasure they seek. And it turns out he escaped in order just to stop his wife from marrying this other guy.
Yeah.
And basically along the way, like towards the beginning of the movie, the two like there's him who he fancies himself, the George Clooney character. He fancies himself as a bit of an intellectual.
Hmm.
The other two just are. One of them is like full of himself and loud and obnoxious. The other guy's just quiet. But all three of them are pretty dumb. But he's like he really fancies himself an intellectual. And so the other two guys go get baptized at the beginning, and he makes fun of it.
Yeah.
and but the movie doesn't really make fun of it. It maybe
No, it doesn't.
it it kind of a little bit oversimplifies it maybe,
Sure.
but it's not seen as a dumb thing. He's seen as an arrogant anti-spiritual character who, and it's really funny at the beginning. He's like, they get the prophecy about the treasure, and the guy's like, you're not going to find the fortune you seek or whatever, but you're going to find a treasure. And they're asking him about it, and he's like, well, he's blind. He's this blind prophet, and it's said that if you're blind, you gain possible supernatural abilities or whatever. It's so who knows? And then they go, yeah, but he said we're not going to find the treasure. Well, what does he know? He's an ignorant old man.
Yeah.
It's like,
He always had a way of doing that. Like he'll he'll come back around to something to
Yeah.
prove a point or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And so then the movie progresses. There's so many like little side quests, like
Yeah.
funny things that happen here and there. But then they eventually get to the town where his wife is, and along the way they record a song at a recording studio, and it actually, while they're traveling across the country to get there, it blows up and they become famous over the radio, and they don't even know it.
Yeah.
And so they end up in the town. He sees his wife. She doesn't want him back, but then she finds out he's famous and she wants him back, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
But
his wife lacks some moral fiber, but
a little bit.
yeah.
You unconstant.
One of the things I really liked, so you mentioned the scene where he kind of mocks the other two for being baptized.
Yeah.
What I like is it kind of comes full circle at the end.
Yes.
They're about to be hanged. The lawman is finally caught up to them,
Right.
and they're going to be hanged. And George Clooney character Ulysses has prayer. He confesses and kind of does the typical thing. I'll do anything. I want to see my kids again. I want to see my wife again. Forgive me for my transgressions. All this stuff. And then it floods, and so it's like you open
Baptism.
with this idea of baptism, and he's like, "Oh, that's foolish. That's nothing." And then he gets baptized.
God baptizes him himself by his providence. Yeah. I love that. Speaks to some doctrines we may be discussing coming up here, but yeah, and like part of the prophecy in the beginning is that you will see a cow on top of a cotton house.
Yeah.
And it's just random apparently, but then the valley gets flooded and they rise to the surface, and he starts questioning everything he just did. All of a sudden they're like, we heard you repenting and everything, and he goes, no, that's nothing. They were going to flood this valley already. We knew that. There's nothing miraculous about this. And then you see a cow to escape the flood is on top of a cotton house. It's just perfect.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like I said, it's like this. It's lighthearted. It kind of makes fun of spirituality a little bit, but like it's making fun of, again, I think at worst it could be making fun of American Christianity sometimes, but not always. Like I said, there's some odd respect for it, but there is this like stupid humans with their religious expressions, but then God's providence like very seriously in the background of the whole movie.
Yeah.
So I found it fascinating.
Yeah. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right. What was your favorite song?
Ooh, there was a couple. I liked the song that they were the church that was walking through the woods and to where they were going to hold the baptism service at the riverbank.
Yeah, you listen to the sound. You listen to the soundtrack. That's Alison Krauss who does that song.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. I gotta mention T-Bone Burnett. I believe is his last name. I know he goes by T-Bone, but he did the soundtrack for this, and he's done a lot of soundtracks out there, and I always love what he works on. Like his choices for music and the songs that he writes are great. So when I saw his name pop up on the credits, I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
I mean, I obviously heard some of the songs already throughout the years, but also they do a lovely rendition of "I'll Fly Away," and of course, "Man of Constant Sorrows" is a great tune. I love the bluegrass influence. Definitely fits. A lot of the scenes reminded me of Louisiana, just in general, with like you can see like crawfish, those little like mud spires that seem to rise up near the riverbanks. Those are like little crawfish homes. So
Hmm.
reminded me of my days in Louisiana.
There you go. I liked Angel Band. Like I didn't realize I liked the song when I
Yeah.
like the strumming begins at the in the end credits. I was
Hmm.
like, it's kind of annoying, and I stopped the movie. But then I listened to it on the soundtrack, and I was like, ooh, I really like this song. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's sort of been my favorite for a while. Although Man of Constant Sorrow is excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Any final thoughts on Oh Brother Where Art Thou before we move on to trivia?
Um, one of the funniest moments for me, like I actually really enjoyed the John Goodman character. So he played the
Yeah.
what was his name in the movie?
Got beat up by a Bible salesman.
Yeah, he's the Bible salesman, but he's the Cyclops guy,
Right.
according to the Odyssey tie-in.
Yeah.
I thought he was a funny character, a funny villain, and glad he met his end.
One of my favorite lines. They desecrated a fiery cross.